Hey guys, if you guys are new here, my name is Sean and I am a current junior at Rutgers University, major in exercise science on the pre-med track, and in this video I will be doing a Q&A based on the questions that you guys have asked over on my Instagram and Twitter. So if you guys want to get involved in any future Q&As, or if you guys just want to know a little bit more about my personal life, you guys can follow those two accounts right here. And I'm going to have timestamps in this video, so if you guys want to skip to any questions, you guys can do so, and let's get to the video. Alright, so the first question is, what is your opinion on gap years and any advice on letters of recommendation? Alright, so in terms of gap years, there's pretty much nothing wrong with doing that, and actually recently I've been greatly considering this option just because of the pandemic and not having as much time to gain that clinical experience and non-clinical experience as well. And generally, from what I heard from other people, gap years are a great way to improve your GPA, retake any grad exams like the MCAT, get any letters of recommendations in, and it's also a great way to get a mental health break, because as students, you've pretty much been doing school from at least kindergarten all the way to your senior year of college if you did take any years off before you went to college. So again, that's another just great reason why a lot of people take gap years. And it's also a chance to find new passions. So usually when you're in school, it's a little bit harder to gain those passions just because you're always busy with school or extracurriculars. So having a gap year will give you more time to discover those new passions that you couldn't discover before. And the same goes for traveling as well if you want to do that in your gap year. Again, you just don't have as much time unless if you're doing it in the summer, but if you want to do it during the fall or the spring, you can have the chance to travel to other countries or in different states. And gap years are just a great way to enjoy life but also be productive, because there's no point taking a gap year if you're not really doing anything meaningful for grad school admissions. So if you want to take the gap year, just make sure you do something productive but also give yourself that time to have fun. And for getting the letters of recommendation, it's a little bit harder to do that online, but what I usually do is, first of all, go to office hours. That's just a great way to interact with the professor and just ask any questions that you need to ask. And also, it's very important to show your face instead of not showing it, just because the professor can actually see you and that relationship between you and the professor can actually start. Even if you don't have any questions as well, you should definitely participate if you can, so that even though you don't have questions, you're still showing that interest to the subject that the professor is teaching. And towards the end of the semester, you can either email the professor or ask the professor at the end or in the beginning of the office hours if they can write you a strong letters of recommendation. Not just a regular letters of recommendation, a strong one. And the reason you want to ask for a strong one is because med school admissions want to actually see that character qualities of you, and if they just write a generic one, then it's not going to really express who you truly are. And then if they can't do that, you might as well just ask someone else. And the next question is how to balance MCAT studying with schoolwork. And as I briefly mentioned in the first question, I probably most likely will be taking a gap year, so I probably will not be studying during the school year and instead in the summer. But for a while, I've had sort of a plan of what I would have done if I wasn't going to take a gap year. So first thing on, you probably should make some kind of study schedule, listen everything you would do up to your test day. And since you're studying for the school year, what I would have done is I would have extended the number of months I would have done. So usually most people study for around 3 months for the MCAT. If I was studying for the school year, I would have extended that to around 4 to 5 months, so I could give myself a little bit of leeway in case I had any midterms or finals. And it's very key to schedule a few hours each day to study for the MCAT. You should definitely treat this as a class, because while school is your priority, you need to make the MCAT as your priority as well. And if you make the MCAT as your second priority or school, one of them will suffer. So that's why if you're studying during school, you have to make both of them top priorities so you can get good grades but also do well on the MCAT. And to make that a little bit easier, you should make a light schedule so that you don't have any challenging courses. And you should try to avoid doing any extracurriculars that are intensive, so that again you can give yourself a little bit more time for studying for the MCAT during the school year. And lastly, just give yourself breaks, because during the school year, especially when you study for your MCAT, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to burn out at least once a day. You should give yourself a break so that you can recharge, still enjoy the stuff you want to do outside of school, and then the next day you can get back with it and perform strong on the MCAT. Alright, so the next question is, do you believe in zodiac signs? So for me, no, I don't personally believe in them, just because I don't know that correlation between personality traits with the zodiac signs. I don't know if there's proven evidence about it. I haven't really done too much research about it, so I kind of just ignored it and just didn't believe in it. So for that reason, I'm not going to discredit people who actually believe in them, but in my opinion, I just don't believe in them. Alright, so the fourth question is how to maintain a positive attitude if your semester is not going as planned. So definitely there was a lot of semesters for me where things have been planned, especially in my freshman year when I was getting adjusted to college. But over the time, I sort of learned a few ways that worked for me how to maintain that positive attitude while a semester's not being as planned as you think you like. So for me, I just kind of think about there's always gonna be better days ahead of you. So if you can take that in your head and just try to push on and don't think too much about the negative things that happen throughout the semester, that could lead to a better performance in the semester. Again, think about it as a long marathon and to take things one at a time. So I tried to set up short-term and long-term goals in the semester so that I could remain motivated and always work to those goals even if things are not going as planned. And also, if things are not going as planned, try to seek that opportunity to improve on that. Whether it's studying strategies or study habits, just try to make sure you always work it towards improving yourself so that you can do better on an exam or on the final. Alright, the next question is, what has been the hardest part about being a pre-med so far? So surprisingly, it hasn't really been the classes, with the exception of maybe 1 to 2 classes. But the hardest thing for me has been comparing myself to others. And I've been struggling with this since freshman year, but I've definitely been improving over time. And I just think that comparing to other people just comes from the competitive nature of getting into medical school. And what I usually think about is that everyone has a different path to get to med school, so there's really no point in comparing yourself to others, and especially comparing yourself to other people who go to your school, because again, it's a holistic application. And I just don't think that a med school is going to compare two people directly who go to the same school. So for me, I've just been focused on myself and not worrying about what other people are doing to get accepted to medical school. Alright, so the next question is, what are the best science GPA classes to take at Rutgers? So in terms of the easiest science classes, there's not going to be easy science classes per se, just because most classes are conceptual and you have to apply these concepts to certain problems. From what I heard, 3 easy science classes are Intro to Environmental Science, Astronomy and Cosmology, and Exercise Physiology. Again, the science classes that you're the best in are the ones that you like the most. Alright, so the next question is how to study without being distracted. So usually what works for me is to try to put your phone away, preferably in your bag or in a separate room, so that the urge to actually get your phone is decreased. Secondly, you should set timers and set a block of when you do your homework. So usually, as I mentioned in many of my videos, I do the Pomodoro method, and the summary is when you do work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, and then repeat that 4 times. And once you get to the 4th interval, you take a 15 to 30 minute break. But again, this could be any interval, just make sure to give yourself a break. And also, I sometimes use a restriction app, and the restriction app I use is Cold Turkey. I know that sounds like a weird name, but that's actually what the app is called. And I use this in my freshman year mostly to not be distracted by any apps I could have went onto on my computer. I don't use it anymore just because now I have the discipline to do my work without going to other sites. But if you're struggling to not get distracted, I would highly recommend getting a restriction app. Alright, so the 8th question is how to deal with test anxiety. And for me, I try to study well in advance for an exam and daily so that I know that I'm well prepared and I avoid having any anxiety when I'm taking exams. Also try not to get too psyched out before you take an exam, so if you can, just don't talk to any of your friends who are also taking the same exam as you, because that can get you a little bit more nervous for an exam. And also once it's like an hour or 30 minutes before an exam, I try not to study as much anymore, just because at that point nothing's really gonna help you anymore if you're studying that late before midterm. Also try to speak positive and just speak things to existence. I know again this sounds a little bit cliche, but this definitely helped me as well. And sometimes when you say something, it will happen. So if you just get to that positive mindset, that will definitely go a long way into not getting any test anxiety. And also just try taking deep breaths so that you can relax your mind and your body and just avoid any tension when you're taking a midterm or final. And the last question is, how are you smart as hell but also nice and helpful? First of all, I'd like to say thank you for that comment, but in terms of being smart, I wouldn't say I'm naturally smart. It's just that I'm more hardworking, and I feel like I need to work hard in order to get the grades that I want. And in terms of being helpful, I always like to try to be nice and be helpful, just because, as I said early on, there's literally no point in competing with other people. It's not really going to benefit you any single way. And for me, I'd rather collab than compete, so that we can all get to our goals, so that we can all succeed together and not succeed against each other. And again, as I said before, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to be directly competing with one another when you're applying to a Pacific med school. If you like today's video, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up so that you can help with the YouTube algorithm. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.